Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, and I've got Peter Wicks from Wixie Leaks back to the channel. How are you going, mate?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. Today we are going to talk about an album and a band that maybe a lot of folks from the Northern Hemisphere haven't heard about, but it made a bit of a ripple in the Australian metal scene. And I'm talking about Mortal Sin. The album is Mayhemic Destruction. So this was a thrash metal band that formed in 1985. The album came out in 1986 and it was signed to Phonogram, and they had a little bit of heat and presence through the Sydney or Australian rock and heavy metal scene. Pete and I used to see a lot of these gigs with Mortal Sin. There was a big audience that used to follow them feverishly. Bit of a crossover, you would say, Peter, between metal headbangers, skinheads, rock fans. It seemed to, there was a bit of a wave. And I think it all started with Metallica, with Ride the Lightning, or even before that with Kill 'Em All, that a lot of the more traditional heavy metal bands like your Judas Priest, your Iron Maiden, or even, your Four on the Floor bands like AC/DC, rock fans and metal fans were getting into this sort of energetic music, thrash metal from bands like Slayer, Testament, Exodus, Megadeth, and of course Metallica from the San Francisco area. So we're going to talk about Mayhemic Destruction. We're going to talk about the songs. We're going to reminisce about the band, our experiences. Pete, any sort of recollection of when you first heard or saw the band? Well, I'm a little bit foggy with me.
Yeah, I'm a bit foggy. I mean, it was a long time ago. But we used to go to the gigs together back then, and it was interesting. There was they did have a solid following, but you really got to know the guys when, like, the scene. It was a reasonable sized scene, but it wasn't a big scene. So, and being regulars, you and I, it was every Saturday night at the Hills Inn, every Thursday night at St James Tavern, Friday night at Sutherland, the Royal at Sutherland. There were these regular. So we used to see Mortal Sin, unless they were touring interstate or something. We used to see them every month, pretty much, at least once a month for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think you may have got me onto this band, and I was into the traditional heavy metal, and a lot of the bands that I saw in the Sydney metal scene were like Boss, which were kind of meat and potatoes, pub rock, AC/DC, Heaven. Then you had some of the bands that are a little bit more metal-y that fell into the Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, like Bengal Tigers, Lightning Rock, White Widow, and Rocks, which was a little bit more of the glammy. Yeah. So there was a healthy metal scene, but these guys came out of nowhere, and it was a thrash scene. And there was this little thrash scene that was sort of propelled by hardcore punk elements, speed riffs, phonetic drumming. And there were a couple of other bands that were in that scene. Slaughter Lord,
who rarely played a gig.
Absolutely were infamous. They did actually play some gigs. Paddington House. It was all self-financed, and they had a bit of a reputation. And there was another band called Sadistic Execution, which were kind of mythical, basically everyone would talk about them in the scene, but they hadn't played a gig. But when I eventually moved into different musical adventures, they started to gig, and they put out some really fantastic stuff, but it was deep, it was underground, it was like Celtic Frost, very sort of Bathory type of death metal. Anyway, getting back to Mortal Sin, they gigged around the traps, and they definitely made a bit of a ripple. And you'd see them on bills with bands like Mass Appeal, which were like skater punk.
Yes.
I'm talking like Suicidal Tendencies, just for the folks in the Northern Hemisphere. The Hard-Ons, which were like punk. Yeah. Like a bit of Dead Kennedys, Damned, Stupids.
See, that's from my memory, that came later. Like originally, that was around the time of the Paddington Town Hall gig, where there was it was a I can't remember. I think it kicked off at midday or something rather. And there was about 6 bands, and half of them were punk and half of them were metal. Like Mortal Sin and whatnot. And I think from memory, that's when I don't remember there even being mosh pit before.
Yeah.
And I think that's when the punk side of it and the metal side of it sort of like converged.
Meshed. And, there was a crossover of different genres.
Yeah.
But the more traditional metal bands, they had a smaller audience base and they were very it was meat and potatoes. It was very fixed on that sort of style of music.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't a lot of crossover. But the thing about Mortal Sin is they embraced all these different audiences, and they were getting some really decent crowds. And I have to say, straight off the bat, they were professional.
Yes.
The sound, they were gig ready. I cannot recall a really bad gig. They seemed to be well rehearsed. The arrangements, the songs were really top notch. And, they had game right from the start. And it's easy to see why they got signed up with Phonogram, the Vertigo label, and went overseas and started supporting acts like Testament. And, they did the famous 1989 support to Metallica on the And Justice for All tour, which we saw. And that was a bit of a kind of a homecoming. All right, so that's a lot of preamble. Let's talk about the album, and we can weave some stories in between. So the album starts off with the song called "The Curse," and it's got that kind of devil's chord, the old tritone, which is a bit of the Black Sabbath sound, very ominous. You got the Egypto chords, and then the crisp bass and the double kick drums come in, and that chugga interplay between guitars. Now, the thing I sort of, listening to this album recently in preparation for this show, is the production sounds so top notch. It sounds so good for a band that was probably produced on a shoestring.
Yeah, self-funded. They did it. They produced it themselves. The original. Yeah, amazing. It's the other thing that and correct me if I'm wrong, because I may well be, but the album, the order of the songs is the same order they used to do live. Like, I remember certainly the first song that they play live was "The Curse," because it's the great warm-up song. It starts off, and then it just builds up and then kicks in. It's So that was definitely the first song they used to play at every gig.
Absolutely. And Women in Leather, which is a bit of an unusual opening track. I mean, the opening vocal track. Well, what do you think of this one?
Well, it's an interesting track. Do you know who it reminds me of? Metal Church. Do you remember Metal Church? Yes, I do. Yeah, it's got that kind of a feel to it. Maybe a bit faster, but it just, I don't know. It just, I've listened to this album now for 30 years. So listening to this as I did this week, it was just sort of like, wow, it was amazing all the influences I hear in it now that I didn't pick up on earlier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, so you can tell when it comes to the second track, they love their Metallica. They're heavily influenced. Yes. But there's also some other meat and potatoes. When I say meat and potatoes, folks, I'm talking about traditional metal. I'm hearing a lot of Priest, where it's that sped up guitar. And also I'm hearing in Matt Mora's the vocals, he's got a very punky phrasing. So, a lot of the punk bands in that late 70s, early 80s had that very sort of sharp phrasing of words, very short, staccato phrasing of lyrics. And to me, it's got that punky phrasing with a bit of mix of James Hetfield. I hear James Hetfield tonalities. So you can tell straight off the bat that this band is very influenced by Metallica. But, and it's something that we'll talk about as we go through the album, it's distinctly Australian. Yeah. It was certainly the riffs in it were very the riffs in Women in Leather that very much reminds me of Kill 'Em All. It's very Kill 'Em All-esque.
It's so yeah, you can definitely
well, they were heavily into that. I can tell you that. Lyrics are no great shakes. It's not Shakespeare. It's basically an ode to the ladies and the fans that used to follow them, and it's probably a bit more of a nod to the sort of a lyric that the Bengal Tigers or Lightning Rock would be doing, but maybe with a little bit of a harder edge. But lyrically, they do a lot of better stuff on this album, but it's not that strong. But anyway,
maybe even Skyhooks, Women in Uniform.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Lebanon.
Yep.
This is where it really starts to hit the gears. I love this song. What do you think of this one?
This is definitely the best song on the album, and and a couple of the guys in the band had Lebanese heritage as well. So I dare say it was a song that was quite close to their heart. This is definitely the track of the album, I think, as far as songwriting goes.
Yeah,
this is if you had to pick a master of puppet song on this album, that would be it.
Yeah, look, the guitar work is great. Paul Kawana, I think, does a lot of the lead work. They had Keith Kristen. He was there for a period of 2 years, who got replaced by Mick Burke from Slaughter Lord, who didn't play on this album. We'll talk about him later. But, look, this is a great... it's got the Egypto chords. Again, it flirts with the tritones, which is the devil's chord, a la Black Sabbath. And I find that the riffs are really thick and heavy, because you notice that there are a lot of bands that put albums out, but you think they're heavy, but they were kind of thin. And I'm talking about, bands like Sodom and Creator, and, all the arrangements are great, and it's a lot of noise. But when you come to it, the actual chords and the music doesn't have a lot of weight. And I think it's more of the production. It's not thick. I find this song that the chords sound thick and heavy, and it's not a thin production. The production on this album is really good. Matt's vocals are a bit pitchy, but I don't mind it. I forgive it, because it's got that punk edge. It's not perfect.
His vocals are an acquired taste. They when I say acquired taste, not like King Diamond or anything like that.
But it puts it into that punky realm. It doesn't have to be on song. He doesn't want to be Bruce Dickinson, and he has said that in interviews that he didn't want to sing like Iron Maiden. So I think the pitchiness of this actually suits the material. And Wayne Campbell, man, he does these fantastic tom fills, the different pitch tom fills. He's a very underrated drummer. And that's the thing that I knew he was a good drummer when I saw him live, but I didn't realize how really good he is until I hear this album. He does all these nifty fills, and it really just propels the song along. This is definitely one of the best songs on the album.
Definitely. And another thing about Wayne's drumming is it comes out in the album. Like a lot of the bands of that era, the drums were like taking a back seat to the riffs and whatnot. This album, the drums really are brought up. So
Next song, Liar. So this is a type of theme that you hear a lot in some of the songs, where they do a gang chorus where it's liar, liar, and a lot of bands that were doing that in America, in the speed metal and the thrash metal, where they do the gang vocals, and it'd be really they'd have it like a catchphrase or a lyric, and it would be shouted out, and then the singer would just do a retort. And I think this really works. What do you think of this song?
It's not the most well written song, or the most musically brilliant song on the album, but it's just an instant crowd pleaser. Like it's clearly designed to work live, and it certainly did work live. The whole liar, it's just it's anthemic. It's
anthemic,
It's got grit, and it just hits you in the teeth. And
Again, some nice tom fills.
Yeah,
Really nice tom fills. Paul Kawana's guitar work is tasty, and it's got those really nice doomy chords. I like the start where it's got the acoustic, but it's got a in. You know
yeah,
how a lot of bands like Metallica, they started off with these little quiet acoustic bits.
it
This
became
one
quite a thing.
has a bit of a twist on it because it starts off acoustic, but there's got these still heavy drum beats underneath it, and you
Yeah,
go, "Oh, this is a bit different," you know.
yeah,
So they're not they're doing stuff that's not conventional. They're picking up influences, but they're doing it in their own way.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
I like it a
it's
lot.
not a rip off. Yeah, it's a very catchy song. It's
Yeah,
one of the catchier songs on the album. One of the ones that
yeah.
you instantly remember. So yeah,
Blood, Death, Hatred. I reckon this is the most hardcore punk song on the album. It's bludgeoning riff. What do you think of this one?
yeah. This one this is probably for me. It's their most memorable song live. This one, like, things were just, people at the front would just lose control over this.
I
It
mean,
was,
like you would be losing control. I think, where's Peter? Oh, he's just
dropped his beer and he's off.
legs flying over me. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Oh man, I used to. I never forget. There was this. I think we saw Mortal Sin, and there was this big fan of Mortal Sin. I think his name was Tiny, but he wasn't tiny. He was like built like this, and he was 7 foot. And he did a stage dive, and the audience, it was like the Red Sea, and it was like
no one wanted to catch him.
No. But at a Mortal Sin gig, it would be quite typical. It'd be a lineup. You'd be queuing up to stage dive.
Yeah.
And that's where you would be. It would be just, oh, where's Pete? Oh, there he is. He's queuing up.
That's right.
Anyway, back to the song.
Yeah, like this. It's I don't know. Do you think it's the fastest song on the album? It's certainly one of the fastest songs on the album.
It is, but it's so punk.
Yeah,
and this is where I think that Matt is really, his vocal delivery is, doing that great mix of GBH, the punk, the staccato, the real, sharp phrasing, meeting Metallica James Hetfield. I think this is my favorite song on the album, and it brings back so many good memories of seeing it live.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Well, the other thing about it is yes, it does sound very Metallica, and it does have that element to it. But at the same time, it's also this is at a time when death metal was starting to rear its head. So you had bands like Creator, Destruction,
Sodom.
Like, so lyrically, like, Venom, Blood, Death, Hatred was sort of like marking their ground. Like, this is what we are as a band. We are they weren't, the full on death metal, but they were in that arena, like in that court. So
absolutely, and a lot of people got to realise that Mortal Sin was the gate, was like the key to opening a lot of fans to other music.
Yeah.
And, not only it was the San Francisco Bay City thrash music, it was opening up to the German thrash bands, as you've described, like Destruction, and even further to the Norwegian and the Scandinavian bands like Bathory, etc. So this band were basically opened a lot of music up and blew people's minds to a lot of different types of genres of metal. So groundbreaking.
Absolutely. I remember there used to be guys that would come over from overseas bands, and they'd come over, even though no one knew the band, so they'd read them in a European magazine or something, and they were pen pals with people over here. I don't know if you remember that, and they'd come over and just hang out here for a couple of weeks, and it was quite a strange scene.
Absolutely. But all right, the next one is Mortal Slaughter. I think this is a little bit more ramshackle, and it's probably a distant cousin of Blood, Death, Hatred.
Yeah.
It's still got that gang chorus delivery of Mortal.
Yep.
Slaughter.
Yeah. And the other thing to bear in mind at the time as well, there was a little bit of competition between these guys and Slaughterlord. I don't know if that played into it with the lyrically, like Mortal Slaughter. It's yeah.
I mean, they were friends, but they were sort of probably.
They were. Yeah.
They're not. There wasn't an unhealthy rivalry, but
God,
definitely they're friends because a lot of the band, members progressed into.
Everyone used to hang out together.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like healthy competition, if you like. We're the best. No, we are.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Now I know one thing for sure. Matt Mora was a big fan of Ian Gillan. And I've read lots of interviews where he said one of them, the best tours he ever saw was the Gillan band, Gillan as in solo band, where they used to play the, they did a pub tour in 1980, 81, and he was waxing lyrical about seeing him at West Ride Inn. And there's a little bit of Ian Gillan. There's a bit of Ian Gillan in this song. There's the growling vocals, so you're hearing a bit of a growl, and then he goes into this high-pitch Ian Gillan. So I had a bit of a smile on this one.
That's right. My God.
West Ride Inn. And Wayne Campbell, he does some wonderful cymbal chokes. Isn't that the part of the heavy metal? Cymbal chokes.
Yeah.
Love his drumming on this.
Yeah. Phenomenal drummer.
Yep. This one is the most Metallica song on the whole album, Into the Fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
I reckon you could easily hear this song on Kill 'Em All or Ride the Lightning. It's a workout song. It's a Metallica workout song. What do you think of this one?
I said if not that they do it, but if you had to have a single off this album, this would be the single. I'd say it's very Metallica. I mean, it doesn't sound like Jump in the Fire, but it's still very Metallica-ish, and I think it's probably one of the easiest ones the instantly likable one. So I think if you had to have a single of the album, this would be it, because it would be.
You think it's the most accessible?
Accessible, yeah.
Yeah, accessible to heavy metal fans, etc.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the last track on the album is Mayhemic Destruction. Well, this has the fastest beats on the album, and this is where Wayne Campbell is just going for it. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, it's a great way to finish off. And, yeah, Campbell's just blowing the drum kits out of the water. He's just going nuts. Yeah, fantastic finale. Yeah, definitely. It's like it's built up to that moment, to this moment, to that track.
Yeah, and it's got interesting time signature changes, melodic changes, and Matt Mora's he doesn't use clean vocals. He's doing the death growl. So.
Yeah, I was going to mention that you can hear elements of like Creator in his vocal style in some of it. Like So and whereas other tracks he sometimes tries to bung on the high whale, like Tom Araya or something. It doesn't quite work as well as Tom, but he's trying different vocal techniques, and on that one he's definitely it's more of it's an ode to some of the death metal that was going on at the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they got signed. They got signed to Phonogram or Vertigo in the UK, and we were just so happy. We were so stoked for them, and it felt like hometown heroes made good.
Yeah.
And I think the most memorable gig that I sort of reminisce is when they supported Metallica on the And Justice for All, and just feeling the pride of this band that we followed and saw so many gigs, being up on the stage at the Horden Pavilion and supporting their heroes, and getting that feeling that they were sort of messing with the big boys and holding their own. I really think the chemistry was probably, as I said, no disrespect to Keith Kristen, because I did see him in the early part of the band, but he left. He was only there for 2 years, and he got replaced by Mick Burke from Slaughterlord. The late Mick Burke. He was just such a wonderful guy, and I had acquaintances with these bands. They probably looking at, if they look at this clip, who's this guy? But
Yeah,
I did talk to these guys at the gigs, and they probably talked to hundreds of people's outside the gigs. But he was such a friendly, approachable, down to earth guy, and he was like the human touch element of this band, the connection between the band and the fans. And you'd have a beer with him after the show, and no trouble just talking shit about metal and what the band are up to. And they were like the people's band, the people's metal band.
See, at the time, from what I remember, the shows that we were going to, you'd get about 200 to 300 people at these shows. But of those 200 to 300, there was like a core group of about 80 that were at every show. And we all knew each other, and we were two of those 80. So yeah,
they were the people's band, and they weren't posers, and there were some even in the thrash genre there were posers, unfortunately, where they just thought they were better than everyone else. But this band, predominantly, they were just had that sort of human touch and connection. And I just think the lineup, the quintessential chemistry and lineup of Matt on sort of lead vocals, Paul Kawana on guitar, Mick Burke on guitar, Andy on bass guitar, and Wayne Campbell. That's the lineup for me.
Yeah.
Steve Hughes, wonderful drummer, probably technically better than Wayne Campbell, and that's no disrespect. But to me, I just think this album is where it's at.
Yeah. It's look. I mean, at the time, you're right. Like, we did feel like they were local heroes who were about to be thrust into megastardom and whatnot. I remember when it came out, there was reviews in some of the overseas magazines, like Metal Hammer and things like that were rating it up there with Master of Puppets. And it was like, we were just going, geez, these guys are destined for stardom and whatnot. But and I remember I don't know if they went, but I remember they got offered a gig at the Donington Festival. Do you remember that? And I
don't. Castle Donington? No, I don't. Well, I'm sure one of our viewers may.
Yeah. There was controversy about like them not being able to raise enough money to go there and play, which would have been a real good launch pad for them overseas. But I can't remember 100%. But But yeah, I mean, the hype was so much. Like the second album, Face of Despair, they look at the producer they got for that. So they got Megadeth's producer for that, off the back of Mayhem and Destruction.
Yeah. But do you like that album, or did you think it sort of dropped off a little bit for you?
I think the production certainly improved. You could tell it was done by you can tell it wasn't as self-produced as Mayhem and Destruction, but I think the songwriting wasn't as good. Yeah,
this I think the songs on this album got a little bit of charm.
Absolutely,
and a little bit, and that's always the way with a debut, because they haven't got shackles. It's the second album syndrome. When a band is unshackled, they're just writing about their experiences. Let's put on a show, and basically it's a blank canvas.
Yeah.
And I just think that there wasn't a huge metal scene, and it was really from ground zero. And that's what makes this band so special to you and I, is we saw this band from ground zero go all the way up.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
But yeah, I just think the joy for me was seeing this band doing triple bills with a skate punk band, a punk band, and hold their own. And
that was
all different, the United Nations, all different types of folk in the audience, just getting off and slamming and moshing and having a great time.
Well, no one who went to a Mass Appeal gig would have gone to a Mortal Sin gig, and no one who was going to a Mortal Sin gig would have gone to a Mass Appeal gig. And then all of a sudden it just converged, and everyone was going to. We were seeing punk bands all the time. The Hard-Ons were particular favourites, and Mass Appeal. But yeah,
and it really put a broom through the metal scene. Like the bands like, and no disrespect to your bands like your Bengal Tigers, Lightning Rock, White Widow. It was like the broom. Um, you know, yeah.
yeah,
So it was like the changing of the guard.
yeah.
So
I think unfortunately for them, the I think Mayhemic Distraction was sort of like, it was like put them above what was, it was such a good album. It put them above the rest, if you like. And I think Face of Despair blended in with the rest, if that makes sense. So it wasn't bad. It just wasn't. It didn't shine out and stand above everything else. So it's yeah.
Well, folks, do yourself a favour. As I said, the Northern Hemisphere metal fans may not be aware of it, but do yourself a favour. This is a great album. This got great reviews of Metal Hammer and Kerrang, and I think it holds up predominantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think it does. I think the band is spirited, the arrangements are good, and they're on fire. So do yourself a favour and check this out.
Yeah.
Peter, as always, great to have you on the show. And Peter Wicks, part of the Aussie Wrecking Crew.
I'll say one other thing before we finish up, which I thought was quite amusing. The cover. Does the cover remind you of Midnight Oil, Red Stars in the Sunset?
I think it takes it that even further, doesn't it? And I will put that up. I haven't got any. It's in there, but I will put it up. It does take it more extreme. It's like the devil has taken over.
And the other thing you should put up, and I hope if not, I can probably flick it to you. Wayne Campbell, still missing person. You'd probably be aware of that. He's been missing now for
Wayne Campbell is disappeared, so he's a missing person, which is quite tragic. But he was a huge talent and definitely a lovely, affable part of the metal scene. Always good for a laugh and a beer, and bit of a larrikin. But to me, he's mortal sin. He's part of the fabric. He's a missing person. And again, just a call out for the great late Nick Burke. He was just he was like the common touch element of this band, and he sort of was definitely part of the fabric. So Peter Wicks, we will get you on Aussie Wrecking Crew. He's a member of that. We will do more shows in 2025. Tell us what you think of Mortal Sin. If you have not heard of Mayhemic Destruction, do yourself a favour. It's on Spotify. Listen to it. It is a cracker of an album. If you like your Metallica, your sort of that Bay City Thrash, Exodus, etc., you will love this album. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation, and Pete and I will be doing a show very soon. All the best and cheers. See you.